Okay. The short video I wanted to make this morning is a video on really what I have found to be useful resources for web development over the years. And so there's, websites come and go in popularity and usefulness. And so, we're in 2022 and there's an infinite number of resources out on the internet, and you could spend an infinite amount of time trying to figure out what's a good resource and what's not a good resource. And I wanted to take my experience of doing this basically my whole life and put together what I thought was some pretty useful resources that I've used throughout the years. And here are those resources. Now, this is not everything that's out there. And I made my little resources folder. Now, the first one, if you're in this class, if you've taken this class with me, you're going to be familiar. I've shared this resource before. This is probably when I'm looking up, anything in HTML or CSS, or a lot of times JavaScript. This is my first stop, and this is the Mozilla Developer Network .org. And again, this is just really useful when it comes to learning. And look, it's updated often, right? And an example of one thing that I've used MDN for recently is kind of updating my understanding of what a CSS pixel is. This is just one example of where a pixel used to be one thing, which is a dot on the screen. And because our dots on the screens were not always the same size, different monitors had different sized pixels, you used to be able to say that a pixel was a relative measurement. And that's just not the case anymore. A CSS pixel is an absolute measurement, and that's kind of something that I use these MDN web docs to kind of help me understand that even though a pixel is a dot on the screen for a monitor, in our CSS definitions, it's just defined a little bit differently. So. This is a good resource. I definitely recommend, if you're watching this video, I would bookmark all of these. Some of these you go to when you're looking things up. Other things you just go to for updating your, what's new in the world of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I'll kind of touch on these. So go through these kind of quickly. Let's go through some more resources. So here's, this is another website. I've used this for more than a decade, right? W3 Schools. In the old days, they had a lot of, I would say, poor guided information on here. And so in the old days, this was not the best website, but they've kind of updated it and fixed a lot of the mistakes that they had. And so much so in the old days, there was a spin-off site called W3 Fools that basically said if you use this tutorial site, you're a fool because it has so many mistakes. But it has been updated. I've referenced this. Video tutorials.
Yeah, that was something that they added now.
Yeah, so pretty cool stuff on W3 Schools. Just another good thing to have on your bookmarks. Let's continue on. I'm going to hit just the HTML and the CSS. W3resource.com is another one. Again, lots of tutorials. Maybe we want to check out a responsive web design tutorial. Just another good resource on the bookmarks page to have out there. Let's continue on. Rankin, 22 resources. Just like there's an HTML, oops, I skipped one. So this is Cssreference.io. We've covered maybe 15 or 20 CSS properties. Well, here, right off the top of the bat, you can see 130 CSS properties. Maybe we've covered more than 15 or 20. Not only do they give you the property name, but how they are applied. Here, eventually, we're going to learn Flexbox. We talked about that. Here's some properties for Flexbox. Here's some properties for animations. Here's some properties for backdown. So this is kind of cool. They give you not only the property, but how it's, the category, it's how it's used. CSS Grid, Flexbox, typography, box model. So Cssreference.io, it also has a 44-page ebook. Yeah, I haven't downloaded that. Buy now. What does it cost? There you go, 15 bucks. You don't need to buy it. Well, let's continue on. So Cssreference.io. Let's continue on. Ranking. I skipped the HTML reference. So it's HTMLreference.io, kind of the same thing, all the HTML tags. So there's 129 CSS properties. We got 113 HTML elements. And so what are the elements? This is kind of cool. Again, category, block level elements, inline elements, whether it's a self-closing or meta tag, or experimental, meaning it's not quite, supported across all the browsers. So HTML reference, CSS reference. This site has been around for a while. What it boils down to is different browsers have different support for different tags in HTML and different properties in CSS. And so, for example, we're going to study Flexbox, and turns out if you're using old Internet Explorer, i.e. 6 through 9, Flexbox is not supported. If you're using IE 10, you kind of get these warning colors. It's not quite green. If you go into Edge, you can see Edge supports Flexbox. Chrome past 2013. Every Chrome version past 2013 has supported Flexbox. So this is really about browser support. And most companies, most end users have modern browsers, but go work for the government sometime and see how old their browsers are. You might be surprised. So can I use answers that question. Can I use this property or this element in what browsers support it? You will see me reference CSStricks.com many times in this class. CSS, as you've heard me say early on, is very powerful. What you can do with CSS might surprise you. And what's really nice is they give you this in CodePen, where you can show the HTML and the CSS to get those results. So CSStricks.com is something that if you want to master like very cool visual effects with HTML and CSS, bookmark this site and visit it often. Because CSS Slinky challenge accepted, cool color with typography. CSS Tricks is great. I've used CSS Tricks a lot. So definitely a good one there. One that you can spend an infinite amount of time on is Free Code Camp. This has a lot of tutorials, as you can see right here, 8,000 tutorials. You can make an account and take these tutorials for free. It is a big commitment to do these tutorials, and what's really nice about Free Code Camp is about these tutorials. If you do put in the time and effort, they link you up with clients who need websites built. And so if you do, and they give you, I don't know if these are called certifications or basically credentials that you can add to your resume or you can add to your GitHub. And again, it's a lot of work. It's almost like a whole nother college sometimes, but it's a good one with a lot of free tutorials. Rankin. This one I have not used a lot, but I'm intrigued. I will say I'm intrigued by this one because it is a web-based IDE. Okay, so we use Visual Studio Code. This is a web-based IDE, and if you talk about the features for all skill levels, GitHub integration, 50 languages, real-time collaboration, in-browser IDE, this is intriguing. Host and deploy the second you create basically a new repo. It's instantly live and shareable with the world. That's cool. Now, we are going to deploy our websites, but I have not used this, and so I'm going to be looking more into this. Wanted to share it because it just looked intriguing enough. Now there is pricing. Free, unlimited free storage, 500 meg, low multiplayer. So of course they want you to pay for it. Everything in our society. Freemium, right? How would you say that? Replit?
I'm guessing that's what's.
Yeah. Again, this is the one that is kind of new and intriguing. It came up on my radar. Haven't looked into it enough, but I just wanted to share that one quickly. Let's see if there's any others.
I had a quick question.
Yeah, please.
About that last site we were just on, Replit.
Uh-huh.
So after looking at the site, can you have like two different types of, like two wrappers on, like coded in?
Yeah. Hey, you were inspecting. Can you have multiple wrappers? Yeah, you can have multiple wrappers on a page. Yeah. Yeah, you can have an outer wrapper and inner wrapper, like nested wrappers, so to speak. Does that answer your question? That's basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally possible. Resources. Okay, now we got into our JavaScript stuff, and I will cover these again when we get into JavaScript. I'm going to cut this off because we're not the first 40 days we're not doing JavaScript. We'll do JavaScript on the back half of this class. But there's maybe one more worth sharing now, and that is free programming books at goalkicker.com. And so, order a coffee. That's funny. Well, let's just kind of scroll. We have a class on C#, CSS Notes for Professionals. 200 pages of professional hints and tricks. So 56 chapters on CSS, and download the PDF book and CSS Notes for Professionals, and voila, free. Getting started with CSS. You can see CSS going back to 1996. So cool stuff there. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting any other resources. Rankin, 2022 resources.
I threw a couple into the
Oh,
chat.
great. Thank you.
Two of them were like CSS.
Css Zen Garden. I've used this before. John just wanted to share this. I like CSS Zen Garden a lot because what CSS Zen Garden is it kind of shows you the power of CSS, because what they do is they take a single set of markup, so the HTML is the same, and they show you basically, again, the content is the same, but just how different all the designs can be. Right, so the whole idea of CSS Zen Garden is to show you some of the flexibility and the power of CSS, the beauty of CSS. And then John also shared this purecss.io, which I'm a little less familiar with. Grids, forms, buttons, tables, a small set of responsive CSS modules. And so a lot of times, if you think of this, so here's a pure.css. I'm imagining what you can do is download this, almost like you would download a normalize, and then this is going to give you a bunch of IDs and classes to use in your HTML that can make your websites responsive. So this is really interesting. They give you a URL to link to. And then you add this meta tag, and then you can start using things like grids for responsive web design, responsive grids. And so that's pretty cool. Thank you, John. All right. Just wanted to share those resources.